in the very beginning, I was usually following uh, a guide, a workbook, here's the trainer's manual, teach this type of thing. But as I did more and more of them, I saw where the gaps were. As I was in business longer and longer, I saw what didn't work, what didn't need to be there. So this, you can do it any way that you want, but this is what works best, and this is what works the fastest. The mistake for most businesses when it comes to business planning, whether that business be big or small, is creating a giant plan, thinking they need a giant plan for the entire year. When it comes to your business planning, goal setting, especially for smaller businesses, one person business, solo entrepreneur, things like that, you really only need to look at 90 days. You really should only be looking at 90 days at a time. Think about how chaotic the world has become in just the last few years. But we could easily go back a decade. And just with the emergence of technology, things happen so quickly. Things change so fast. It just doesn't make sense. It makes zero sense to spend the time to invest a chunk of time into trying to create a plan that you think you're going to follow for an entire year. It's just silly when it comes down to it. It's silly to think that is needed, that would even be helpful. So let's talk about the correct way to do business planning, which is really focusing on 90 days at a time. We're going to talk about the mistakes, the frustrations, the obstacles, and the 5 keys that you really should focus on when it comes to your business planning and your goal setting. One of the biggest frustrations I see when it comes to goal setting is focusing on obstacles that are in the way. So thinking about, like, why can't I do this? What are all the reasons why I can't achieve? Maybe it's something in the past. Maybe it's a person that let me down or steered me in the wrong direction. So when you go to set the goal, when you go to think about what you do want to achieve, instead of thinking about what you want, you focus on all the things that are going to get in the way. You got to get rid of that idea, that belief, that obstacle. The second thing is setting goals that are too big or too far out. It's nice in theory. It's nice from a guru point of view to try to get you to think bigger. And maybe you come from a place where you don't think big at all. And so the way to overcome that is go, I'm going to think bigger. I'm going to just think of a number and then I'm going to 10 times it. And that's nice in theory. But when it comes to creating the momentum and then hitting milestones, hitting checkpoints, and building belief in yourself of, like, I can do this, it doesn't make a lot of sense to set a goal that is so big, so far out, that you'll realistically never achieve it. And the third big obstacle, frustration that I see, mistake that people make, is borrowing goals. When you aren't sure what you want, when you don't have clarity, a vision for yourself, for what you want the future to look like, you look around, and especially in a materialistic world, you go, well, that looks nice. I'll take one of those. That person has something that looks nice, and they seem happy. So I guess I'll just borrow their goals and go from there. And that can lead you, even if you do achieve the goals, it leads you down a path unfulfilled and unhappy. So we want to make sure that we're not making those 3 giant mistakes. And as we start off with the video of making sure that you're not planning for the entire year, let's focus this down into 3 months, 90 days at the most. Here's a fun fact from the Journal of Clinical Psychology. There's been 384 different tests that have shown that goal setting has a statistical significance on effective behavior. So you maybe have heard the idea that only 8% of people are still doing their New Year's resolution by mid-January or the 3rd week of January, whatever it is. But there's a lot of evidence that just setting the goal, taking the time to get that clarity, to go, this is what I want. This is what I'm going to aim for, has a lot of positive benefits. So I think it's worthwhile to go through the process. I just don't think it's worthwhile to overcomplicate and overstuff and make it an off-site event or a 2-day extravaganza of like, I'm going to take away from life, from family, from my current work in order to go set these goals. Probably there's a happy medium here, and that idea is probably overkill. The kind of people that are like, I'm not going to set goals at all, that doesn't make sense either. I look at Proverbs 16:3, commit to the Lord whatever you do, and he will establish the plans. There's a place for goals. There's a place for plans. There's a place for taking the time to figure out what it is that you actually want. So when someone's like, I don't want to waste time, they go too far at the end of the spectrum. They go, I don't want to waste time coming up with goals or making plans. Whatever happens, shows up. That's a very organic idea. And in a way I can appreciate that. But I look at Luke 14:28. Suppose one of you wants to build a tower. You won't first, wouldn't you first sit down and estimate the cost of what it is to make sure that you can complete it? So there is a place for goal setting and planning. It's just become such a industry unto itself that we need to make sure that we're doing this properly. So the 5 keys of the goal setting that we really want to focus on is, first, direction, or I just like to think of aim, but we want to focus on direction, not destination. What I've seen with goals, one of the challenges is, as you're approaching the goal, we might have a tendency to let up, and so we back off. Or if we do hit the goal, it's kind of like, now what? What do we do with this now? No, I hit it. What's next? So focusing on the direction, I'm just going to aim, allows us to not get caught up into that let up or the let down of hitting the goal. And it also allows us to get started quicker, just moving. Where do you want to go? I guess I want to go that way. Then take the first step and go. How you do that, what should be the specificity of it, it will get clearer as you take the first step. Every step, clarity becomes more clear. So we want to have direction, not a destination. Number 2, see the light. This goes back to what I was talking about earlier, too big, too far out. I think goals should be able to be seen. They should be attainable enough. You want to maybe be able to stretch for them. But you don't, if you can't see the light, if you're stumbling around in the dark and you somehow do hit your goal, it was luck. You're in the dark. So make sure that your goals, you can see where the light is, you can see the end of the tunnel, you can see where that's going, and you're heading in the correct direction with the light at the end of the tunnel. Number 3, get momentum, keep momentum. I like to look at things as having 2 plans. This will help keep you off the roller coaster ride, the ups and downs. Also, if you can have these 2 plans, have a plan to get momentum. That's probably where you're at right now with this. Number 2 is keep the momentum. Those are 2 different things. Like, take content marketing, for example. What you need to do to get the momentum in order to achieve a certain level, to build an audience, to capture the audience attention, to keep their attention, you're probably gonna have to put more in. And then that's gonna bring a level of business to you, so you can't keep it going, so you drop off. Because what you were doing was not really sustainable to then take care of client work. So we want to have a get momentum. And then when you hit a certain level, you go, okay, now all these leads, all these clients are flowing in. I'm busy with client work. Let me back off. My second part, my keep momentum plan looks like this. So take the time to develop not just the get momentum plan right now, but have a keep momentum plan for later on in the year once you have reached that certain level. Number 4 is ignore the peripheral. Another way I like to think about it is now, not next. So this is putting the blinders on. We've seen the race horses, they have the blinders on. Focus on the race. Don't focus on where your competition is at, who's running next to you. Don't focus on new ideas. Don't focus on the new masterclass that is being promoted in your feed. Don't focus on the new webinar that's being put into your email. Don't focus on the new class that is coming through town. 90 days, if it's important while you're planning, build it into their schedule, build it into your education process, build it into how you're going to invest your time right now. But then once you've decided, anything else is going to be a distraction. Keep your focus for these 90 days. Focus on what you need to do now, not what you think you need to do next. So there's going to be guaranteed that there'll be a great book that you'll be recommended or told about, or a great class. You have to be able to ask yourself, do I need that right now? Or is that something that could come next in my second quarter or my third quarter, my fourth quarter, my next 90 days? So focus on what you need now, not what you need next or later. And then the fifth key to your goal setting and business planning is looking at what is at stake. So this is really important for solo entrepreneurs, one-person businesses, real estate pros, those agents, lenders, mortgage lenders, small local service businesses. It's important to ask yourself, like if you're in a big corporate job, you know what's at stake, it's your job. And of course, I would think that if you're self-employed, you go, well, what's at stake is just my overall livelihood. We don't always think about those things. We're just so busy caught up in the survival of the day-to-day. We don't think about what's at stake of the goals or the projects that we're trying to put in place. So as you set your goal, instead of just going with whatever happened, what's ever happening with the market, you put your goal, you plan your project and you go, what's at stake? I want to hit these numbers because what's at stake if I don't? I want to launch this new campaign because what's at stake if I don't launch this campaign, then I'm going to, my competition is going to get ahead of me. What's at stake if I don't finish this project? If I don't create this new product? If I don't create a new service? What's at stake? And if we're only goal setting for the sake of funsies and like, well, I have a goal and it will be nice if I hit it. If I don't hit it, no big deal. Goal setting and storytelling are two sides of the same coin in my book, that there has to be something at stake. If there is nothing at stake in a story, there's nothing interesting in it. You're just hitting facts and bullet points and timelines along the way. When it comes to goal setting, when things get tough, you're going to go, well, this doesn't really matter, so I'm not going to pursue this with the kind of enthusiasm that I really should if I want to achieve it. So as one-person businesses, as self-employed, as solo entrepreneurs, we really have to decide when it comes to our goal setting and our business planning, what is at stake. I got licensed in real estate in 1997 and went through my first business planning session during that time. And then through coaching and training, I've led a bunch of business planning sessions since the early 2000s, have walked through workshops, training, coaching, one-to-one, different levels, over thousands of people through business planning workshops and training sessions. And there's lots of different ways you can do it. In the very beginning, I was usually following a guide, a workbook, here's the trainer's manual, teach this type of thing. But as I did more and more of them, I saw where the gaps were. As I was in business longer and longer, I saw what didn't work, what didn't need to be there. So this, you can do it any way that you want, but this is what works best, and this is what works the fastest. So a few things to remember here. Goal setting shouldn't be overwhelming or confusing or super time consuming. It can just be focused down to figuring out what direction, what do I need to do now, not next, and what is the general direction that I want to get to. As you get going, then you can get more clear about what specific numbers, what specific things. But in the initial process, don't worry about that. Just get focused on a direction, not the destination. These 90 days, or what I call quarterly quests, seem to be good enough. 90 days, 90 days is a long enough period of time to get a big project done. It's a short enough time to keep your focus and not get super distracted. So that's what I like about a 90-day chunk, and why I look at these quarterly quests. Along those lines, it's whenever you're goal setting or you're looking at problem solving or business planning, it just comes down to don't guess, start the quest. If you're unsure, start. If you're not clear about the number, just start. If you don't know what you really want to hit, just start. If you're not sure what you want to do, just start. Don't guess, start the quest. So two big things to take action on here, I think, is first, pick a direction and just take that first step. And then the second thing is don't shy away from spending some time considering what's at stake. If you're going to spend time on anything, I think that's where the time investment should be spent, is if I don't, then what? If we don't achieve this, what happens? It's too easy for self-employed, one-person businesses, freelancers, to just get caught up in the busyness of stuff and going on to the next, and just kind of in survival mode. But if we don't slow down and think about what's at stake, we're always going to stay in that mode. So instead of spending a bunch of time on the front end of the data and the numbers of it, I would encourage you to sit on the back end of thinking about what's at stake if I don't hit these numbers.